Hello everyone, I hope you guys are doing well. This is Mrs. Figueroa. This is going to be most likely a two-part video. We're going to be going over the third lesson, 7C-3, and this is going to be on amplitude and midline. So amplitude we've kind of already gone over in the first two lessons, and then we're going to be adding the concept of midline today. So the objective for today is you guys are going to be able to find the amplitude and midline of a given function, and then you're going to write the equations given the amplitude and midline. So I will be giving you the amplitude and the midline, and you have to write the equation. Okay, so let's go over some prior knowledge. So our prior knowledge here says to state the amplitude for each function. So if you remember, we have y equals a cosine theta. So then the a is the amplitude. So it's asking you to find the absolute value of a. So my a here is -4, but if I take the absolute value of -4, that tells me the amplitude is 4. Okay? It's the same with this one. Absolute value of 7 is just going to be 7. So your amplitude is 7. And then this -5, if you take the absolute value, remember it's always positive. So your amplitude is going to be +5. Okay? So just remember amplitude is in the beginning of the function, is your a value. Alright, so then remember again, amplitude of sine and cosine functions. The amplitude of the functions y equals a sine theta and y equals a cosine theta is the absolute value of a. So it's always this in the front, and it's always the absolute value of a. So amplitude is the absolute value of a. And then the amplitude tells us how far up and down to go. So if it's 7, that tells you from the midline. So let's say this is my midline. You're going to go up 7 and then down 7. That's if your amplitude was 7. Okay, and then the negative values, so if you remember, if you have like y equals -2 sine theta, this will cause the graph to flip. So this negative here is going to be an x-axis reflection. Okay, x-axis reflection if you have a negative. Alright, so let's go over some examples on how to write the function or the equation. So you're going to write the equation for the sine function with an amplitude of 2. So this tells me it's sine, so I know I'm going to have y equals a sine theta. And I know that my amplitude is a, so that tells me a is 2. So I'm just going to go plug in what I have into my equation. So I have y is equal to, a is 2, so 2, and I have the sine function, and I don't have an angle, so you just leave it as sine theta. So this is your equation, y equals 2 sine theta. Okay, so I want you guys to practice with this next one. You can look at that example to help you. This is write an equation for the sine function with amplitude -3. So go ahead and pause this video and then try this one. Okay, hopefully you paused the video and you should have had the answer. Well, the function is a sine theta and our a value is -3. So -3 sine theta should have been your answer. Okay? All right. Oops, sorry about that. So these are two more practice problems. I want you guys to try this one. Be careful though, the first one says cosine, and then the second one says sine. Make sure you have the correct function, okay? So go ahead and pause the video, and then I'll show you guys the solution. Okay, hopefully you paused the video. So here's the solution. Whoops, I zoomed in. So here's the solution, y equals a cosine theta, which amplitude was 9, so you put 9, and again that was a cosine function. For the other one, we have a sine function, so you should get y equals a sine theta, amplitude's -23, so you just replace a with -23. Okay, again, make sure you have the right function that says cosine, so you should have cosine. This one says sine, so you should have sine. And then the amplitude tells you what the a value is. All right, so now let's talk about vertical shift and sine and cosine functions. So for the vertical shift of the function, it's kind of like when we did the transformations, the vertical shift was our k. So my vertical shift here of the function, y equals plus or minus a sine theta plus k, and y equals plus or minus a cosine theta plus k is k. So the vertical shift is your k value. Excuse me. And just like before, if k was positive, k is greater than 0, that means you're going upwards. And if k is less than 0, that means negative, the shift is going to be going downwards, okay? So the same thing as saying k greater than 0, that's like you're saying k is positive. And if k is less than 0, that's the same thing as saying your k is negative. Okay, so if your k is positive, you're going to be going upwards. And if your k is negative, you're going to be going downwards. And then we have the vertical shift here still is called the midline. So the vertical shift is the midline, and it's written as y equals k. So this midline, this midline here is basically saying it's the middle. That's the middle of the graph. So if you were to have your function for sine, you're going to be doing like this. Okay. So this is telling you that the midline would be this, the middle. So you're going the same distance up and same distance down. So that line in the middle, that's called the midline, okay? And in the first two lessons, the midline was the x-axis, but in today's lesson, we're going to see that that's not going to be the case. So we're going to first go over how to write the equations, and then in the second video, I'll show you guys how to actually graph them, okay? So write an equation of the sine function with the midline of -1. So you guys are writing an equation. It tells me it's the sine function. It gives me a midline is -1. And then it gives me an amplitude of 3. So I know I have sine, so I'm going to have y is equal to a sine theta plus or minus k. Okay? Excuse me, amplitude is 3, so this tells me your a value is 3. Midline, that's my k, is going to be -1. So my function is going to be y is equal to 3 sine theta minus 1. And this is my equation. Okay? So again, the midline is k, amplitude is a, and I have the sine function, so you just go plug everything in. Okay? So let's look at the next example. This one's still an equation. This time is cosine with midline of 5, and then amplitude is -2. So my equation is going to be y is equal to a. I have cosine of theta plus k. So my midline is k, is going to be 5, and amplitude is -2. So this tells me a is -2. So I'm just going to go plug in. I have y is equal to a is -2 cosine of theta plus k, which is 5. So this is my equation. Okay? So basically, again, figure out what function you have, either sine or cosine. That tells you what function to put in your equation. And then the midline is your k value, amplitude is your a value. And then you just plug it in. So let's go ahead and have you guys practice these next two examples. Please pause the video and try on your own. Be careful, the first one is sine and the second one is a cosine. So please pause the video and try on your own, and then I'll show you the solution. Okay, hopefully you paused the video. So here's the solution to the first one. I have a sine function. The midline is 10, so I know, well, that's a mistake. Hopefully you guys are saying, Miss Figueroa, that's wrong. Okay, midline, this is a positive 10, so this should be positive 10. And then the amplitude is 12, okay? And then for the second one, it's a cosine function. Midline is positive 8. It is positive there, so that's good. And then the amplitude is negative 4. But again, make sure you go... My answer is wrong here. This is supposed to be plus 10, not negative 10, because the midline is positive, okay? All right. Last two examples for this video. I want you guys to pause and then go ahead and try these two. Okay. Hopefully you paused it. So here's the solutions. We have sine. So we have the sine function. Midline is negative, so we have negative 9. Amplitude is positive 7. For the last one, we had midline is positive 7. Amplitude is 5. And then we have the cosine function. So you should have had cosine for those. Okay? All right, good job. So this is the end of this video. In the next video, I will go over how to graph them. Okay, so stay tuned and make sure you watch the next video.